"Why do you keep coming back?" I asked her. She looked at me, quiet, and said, "Because he chose me." It wasn't about the dog. It was about a promise, a child, and a man who came back to take everything she built. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, have you ever had to fight to keep someone you love? And where are you watching from? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more real emotional stories. Let's begin. My name is Dr. Ethan Caldwell, and for 9 years I've run a small veterinary clinic in a town where people think they understand loneliness just because they've seen it from a distance. I thought I understood it too, until the night Claire Bennett walked through my door carrying something broken that didn't belong to her and somehow changed everything. It was 11 minutes before closing when she arrived. Rain tapped softly against the windows, the kind that comes with early spring, cold, steady, almost thoughtful. The pavement outside still held the last memory of winter, dark and wet under the streetlights. I was already halfway through shutting down for the night when the door opened and she stepped inside. She was soaked. Not completely, just enough to tell me she'd been outside longer than she should have been. Her coat clung to her shoulders, her shoes were wrong for the weather, but her hands were steady, and in them she carried a dog, not hers. You could tell by the way she held him, carefully, but without that familiar ownership people have with their pets. This was something else, urgent, chosen. "I found him on the road," she said. "I couldn't just drive past." There was no panic in her voice, no hesitation, just certainty. I took the dog from her and laid him on the exam table. Deep cut along the hind leg, ugly, bleeding, but clean. Probably wire, maybe glass. He was shaking, but he didn't try to bite, just watched. "They don't always fight," I said, more to fill the silence than anything else. "Sometimes they just decide to trust you." "Like him?" she asked quietly. I nodded. "He's leaning in instead of pulling away. That means he's already made up his mind." She stepped closer, but not all the way, just enough to see the wound. "Is it bad?" "It looks worse than it is," I said. "He'll need stitches, and someone patient enough to sit with him while he heals." I worked while she watched, not nervously, not impatiently, just focused, like she was studying how pain was handled. "You're gentle with him," she said after a while. "He's scared. Gentle is the only thing scared understands." That made her go quiet. The dog whimpered once when I started stitching, and she flinched like she felt it too. Not dramatic, just real. When I finished, I wrapped the leg and placed him in a recovery crate with a blanket. He circled once, then lay down, eyes half open, watching her. "He trusts you already," she said. "No, he's just too tired to fight. Trust comes later, when he wakes up and I'm still here." That's when she looked at me, really looked. "What's your name?" I asked. "Claire," she said. "Claire Bennett." I recognized it immediately. The woman from the edge of town. The one people talked about without knowing anything real. 6 years alone. No visitors. No story anyone could confirm, but plenty they were willing to invent. "People say a lot of things about that house," I said carefully. "They usually do," she replied. "About things they don't understand." The room fell quiet again, filled only with the dog's slow breathing and the soft rhythm of rain against the glass. "He'll need to stay overnight," I said. "You can come back in the morning." She didn't move right away. Instead, she looked at the dog, then asked something that didn't sound like a simple question. "What happens if no one claims him?" I leaned back against the counter. "Then he waits, until someone decides he's theirs." Her fingers rested lightly against the edge of the crate. "I'll come back in the morning," she said, but it didn't sound like a plan. It sounded like a promise. After she left, the clinic felt different, quieter than it had any right to be. I sat down beside the crate for a minute, watching the dog drift in and out of sleep. I don't know what just happened, I muttered. But that wasn't true. I did know. Something had walked through my door that night, and it wasn't just a wounded animal. It was a story. One the whole town had gotten wrong. And for the first time in years, I found myself wanting to listen. She came back the next morning at 7:12. I remember the time because I hadn't even turned the sign to open yet. The sky was pale, that soft early spring gray where the world feels like it's just waking up. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet, reflecting the first light. There was a quiet knock on the glass door. Not impatient, not loud. The kind of knock that says, "I'm here, but I don't want to intrude." I wiped my hands on a towel and walked out front. Claire stood there holding 2 cups of coffee. Her hair was pulled back loosely this time, her coat dry, though still too light for the lingering chill. She looked softer, like sleep had taken a small piece of whatever weight she carried. "You're early," I said as I unlocked the door. "You said morning. This is morning." I took the coffee, still hot. "You walked here?" She gave a small shrug. "It's not far." It was almost 2 miles. Inside, she went straight to the recovery crate. No hesitation, no small talk. The dog lifted his head the moment he heard her steps and gave a slow, cautious wag. "Hey," she whispered, crouching beside him. He pressed his nose through the bars. And just like that, something in her changed again. Shoulders relaxed, breathing slower. Like whatever she carried into the room, she set it down the second she touched him. "He's doing well," I said, leaning against the counter. "Ate, drank, didn't mess with the stitches. Smart dog." "Or stubborn," she murmured. "Those are usually the same thing." That almost smile appeared again, closer this time, still careful, but real. "Does he have a chip?" she asked. I shook my head. "No chip, no collar. I called the shelter this morning. No one's reported him." "So," she hesitated, fingers brushing behind the dog's ear. "He's no one's." "For now," I said. Silence stretched between us, but it wasn't empty. It felt like something building, something neither of us was rushing to name. "I can't take him," she said finally. I nodded once. "Okay." It came out quickly, like she needed to make sure I understood. "It's not that I don't want to, I just can't." "Most situations aren't simple," I said. She looked at me then, like she was weighing whether I deserved the truth behind that sentence. "Can I still come see him?" she asked. "Doors open at 7. Offie, optional." That earned me a real smile. Small, but it stayed. She came back the next day. And the day after that. Always early. Always with coffee. Always going straight to the dog like the rest of the world didn't exist. By the 4th day, he started wagging before she even opened the door. By the 5th, he barked once when she was late. By the 6th, I realized I was listening for her footsteps too. On the 7th morning, she didn't come alone. The door opened, and I looked up expecting the same quiet routine, but instead, Claire stepped inside with a second figure beside her. A girl, 11, maybe 12. Thin, dark hair pulled into a braid that looked like she'd done it herself. A backpack hanging off one shoulder, a small keychain swinging from the zipper. Her eyes moved quickly around the room. Not curious, careful, measuring. "Ethan," Claire said softly, "this is Lily." The girl didn't smile, didn't wave, just studied me like she was deciding something important. I recognized that look. I'd seen it in animals that had learned not to trust too quickly. "There's someone in the back who's been waiting all morning," I said gently. Lily glanced at Claire. Claire nodded. The girl walked past me slowly, each step cautious but deliberate, and stopped in front of the crate. The dog stood immediately, tail moving, ears forward. Lily licked her fingers through the bars, and just like that, something in her face broke open. Not all the way, just enough. "He likes me," she said quietly. Claire's voice softened behind her. "He has good taste." I stood back and watched. The girl, the dog, the woman who had spent 6 years hiding from the world, or so everyone thought. There was a story here. I could feel it now, clear as anything, and I realized something that settled deep in my chest. Claire Bennett hadn't been alone all this time. She had just been protecting something worth everything, and for the first time, she had brought it with her. That morning changed something, not suddenly, not loudly, just enough that I felt it settle somewhere I couldn't ignore. Lily came back the next day, and the day after that. At first, she barely spoke to me. Everything went through Claire. Questions, answers, even simple things like, "Can he have water?" But she always went straight to the dog. By then, she had already named him. "Soldier," she said on the third morning, sitting cross-legged on the floor with a book open in her lap. I leaned against the counter. "That's a strong name." "He got hurt," she replied without looking up, "but he didn't quit." I glanced at Claire. She didn't say anything, just watched Lily with that same quiet expression, proud, tired, protective. Over the next week, Soldier healed faster than I expected. The stitches held clean, the swelling went down. By day 10, he was already putting weight on the leg again, but none of that was what stayed with me. What stayed with me was the routine. Claire and Lily arriving early, coffee in hand. The sound of Lily's voice reading softly while Soldier rested with his head against the crate door. Claire sitting nearby, not interrupting, just listening like the moment mattered more than anything else in her life. It wasn't loud love. It wasn't obvious, but it was everywhere. One morning, after Lily disappeared into the back with Soldier, Claire stayed near the doorway. She didn't follow right away. She just stood there, looking out the window at the pale green buds starting to appear on the trees across the street. I said, "She trusts him." Claire nodded. She doesn't trust easily. I noticed. A quiet pause. Then I asked, "She's your daughter?" Claire's eyes shifted, just slightly. "My niece," she said. "My sister's." The way she said sister told me everything I needed to know without her explaining it. "She was 5, Claire continued after a moment, "when it happened." I didn't interrupt. "When my sister died, there wasn't anyone else who could take her. At least, not anyone who would have kept her the same." I leaned back against the counter, giving her space to keep going or not. "I promised," she said quietly, "that if anything ever happened, I'd raise her. So I did." There was no pride in her voice, no need for recognition, just truth. "I left everything," she added. "My job, my apartment, my life. Moved here where no one knew us. And for 6 years, it's just been her." I exhaled slowly. 6 years. That number finally made sense. "People think you were hiding," I said. Claire gave a faint, almost amused breath. "People need simple stories." "And the real one?" She looked past me, toward the hallway where Lily's voice drifted softly as she read to Soldier. "The real one is that I didn't have anything left to give anyone else," she said. That landed harder than anything she'd said before. Not because it was sad, because it was complete. From the back room, Lily's voice rose slightly. "He's listening, I think." "He is," I called back. Claire smiled at that.
Not the small, guarded version, a real one. And for a second, she looked younger, lighter, like spring had finally reached somewhere inside her, too. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. She hesitated.
That was answer enough. "No," she said softly. "I just don't want Lily getting used to something that won't last." That hit harder than I expected. "I'm not passing through," I said. Claire studied me like she was trying to decide if that was something she could afford to believe. Before she could respond, the sound of a car pulling up outside broke the moment. Not unusual, except it didn't leave. The engine cut. A door slammed. Claire's expression changed instantly. All the softness, gone, replaced by something tight, controlled. "Claire?" I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked toward the window slowly, like she already knew what she was going to see. I followed a step behind. A man stood near the edge of the yard. Mid-30s, clean clothes. Too clean for this town. Confident posture, the kind of man who didn't knock unless he had to. "Stay here," Claire said under her breath. But it was too late. The front door opened before either of us could stop it. Lily stood there, soldier at her side. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice small but steady. The man looked down at her. Something in his expression shifted, like recognition but not warmth. "Lily," he said. Claire moved past me fast. "Get inside," she told Lily, her voice calm but sharp in a way I hadn't heard before. Lily didn't argue. She stepped back immediately, soldier following close. Claire stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind her. I stayed just inside, close enough to hear. "What are you doing here?" she asked. The man smiled slightly. Not kind, controlled. "I think you know," he said. Silence stretched. Then, "I filed this morning." The words landed like a crack in glass. Claire didn't move. "For possession," he added. I felt something tighten in my chest. Claire's voice stayed level. "You don't get to walk in after 11 years and decide that. I'm her father." "You were never anything," Claire replied quietly. That hit him. I saw it in the way his jaw tightened. "My lawyer disagrees. You don't have legal adoption finalized. No partner, limited income. It's not a strong case." Claire didn't raise her voice, didn't step back. "I raised her," she said. "That's the only case that matters." He looked past her, toward the house. "New wife wants a family," he said casually. "This is simpler." Something inside me snapped at that. Claire's hand clenched at her side, but her voice stayed steady. "She's not something you take," she said. "She's mine," he replied. "No, she's hers." Silence again. Then he stepped back slightly, adjusting his jacket like this was just another conversation. "You'll be hearing from the court," he said. And just like that, he turned and walked away. The car door slammed. The engine started. And then he was gone. Claire didn't move for a long time. I opened the door slowly. "Claire?" She exhaled. Not shaky, not broken, just heavy. "He's going to try to take her," she said. I nodded once. "Yeah." She turned to look at me then, and for the first time since I'd met her, I saw fear. Not for herself, for Lily. "I don't have what he has," she said. "Money, lawyers, a perfect life on paper." I stepped closer. "You have something better," I said. She shook her head slightly. "That's not how courts work." "Then we make them see it," I replied. Claire looked at me like she was about to argue, then stopped. "Ethan, this isn't your fight." "You're right," I said. I took a breath. "But I'm standing in it anyway." From inside the house, Lily's voice came quietly. "Claire?" Claire closed her eyes for a second, then straightened. When she opened them again, the fear was still there, but so was something stronger. "I won't let him take her," she said. I believed her, but for the first time, I also understood something else. Love isn't just about staying when things are quiet. It's about standing your ground when everything is about to be taken away. The next 3 weeks felt like living under a sky that never fully cleared. Everything looked normal from the outside. The trees kept blooming. The mornings grew warmer. People in town carried coffee, opened shop doors, waved from sidewalks like life was simple. But inside that little house on Willow Creek Road, every day felt measured against one question. What if he wins? Claire never said it out loud. She didn't have to. It was there in the late-night paperwork spread across the kitchen table, in the legal forms, school records, doctor visits, proof of address, proof of stability, proof of 6 years of showing up. It was there in the way she stopped sleeping properly, the way she kept checking locks without realizing she was doing it. I helped however I could. I called in a favor from Karen Doyle, a family attorney in Dayton, whose daughter's horse I'd once treated in the middle of a snowstorm. She agreed to take Claire's case for less than she normally would. We gathered everything, letters from Lily's teachers, from the librarian who knew exactly how often she came in, from the pediatrician who had seen the same guardian at every appointment for 6 straight years. I wrote one too, not as a man in love, because that still felt too fragile to name, just as someone who had watched a guarded child learn to trust again in a home where love was quiet, constant, and real. Lily knew something was wrong long before anyone told her. Children always know. They hear the phone calls that stop too fast. They notice when the people keeping them safe start speaking in softer voices. One evening, she came into the kitchen while Claire and I were sorting documents. Soldier padded in beside her and pressed against her leg. She looked at the papers on the table, then at Claire. "Is someone trying to take me away?" No child should have to ask that question. Claire stood up immediately. She didn't lie. That was one thing I had already learned about her. She respected truth too much to dress it up. "Yes," she said. "Someone is trying." Lily was quiet for a second. "Is it him?" Claire nodded. Lily didn't cry. That somehow made it worse. "He never came," she said flatly. "Not once." Claire's face broke then. She crossed the room and held her, and Lily held on just as tightly. Over Claire's shoulder, Lily looked at me. She didn't say anything, but I understood the question in her eyes. "Are you staying?" I sat back down at the table and picked up the next file. That was my answer. The hearing came on a Tuesday. Gray morning, courthouse that smelled like old paper and coffee. Claire wore a navy dress and had her hair pinned back. Her hands were steady, but I knew her well enough by then to see how much effort that steadiness cost. Ryan Cole sat across the room with his attorney and a polished expression that made me dislike him on sight. He looked like the kind of man who thought a clean jacket could erase 11 years of absence. Karen laid everything out calmly. School records, medical records, 6 years of one address, one school, one guardian, letters from teachers describing Lily as kind, bright, and well cared for. Then she read mine. The part about Lily entering my clinic like a child already used to disappointment. The part about Soldier choosing her. The part about how children only learn that kind of gentleness from someone who's been giving it to them every day for years. Ryan's attorney argued income, technicalities, lack of finalized adoption papers. Karen stood and answered with the one truth that mattered. Stability, she said, is not a theory in this case. It is a 6-year fact. The judge looked at Ryan for a long time before speaking. Then she denied the custody request and ordered support for the formal adoption process to move forward immediately. Claire didn't collapse, didn't cry in some dramatic way. She just exhaled like she had been holding her breath since the day her sister died. Outside the courtroom, Lily was waiting on a bench. She looked at Claire once and knew. Then she ran. She hit Claire so hard they nearly stumbled, and Claire held her like she would never let go again. I stood back for a second. That moment belonged to them. Then Lily pulled away, walked over to me, and studied my face the way she always did. "You stayed," she said. I did. She hugged me quick and tight, then stepped back like she hadn't done anything unusual at all. That evening we sat on the porch with the windows open and the soft late spring air moving through the house. Soldier was asleep inside. Lily was reading in the living room. Somewhere down the road someone was mowing a lawn. Everything sounded ordinary again. Claire sat beside me in the quiet. "For the first time in years," she said softly, "I don't feel like I'm bracing for something." I looked at her. "You kept your promise." She turned toward me then, eyes clearer than I had ever seen them. "And you kept showing up." I reached for her hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Real love, I realized then, doesn't always arrive like lightning. Sometimes it comes like spring, slowly, patiently, steadily. And sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is not to run toward it, but simply to stay. Thanks for watching. If this story meant something to you, please like and subscribe for more unforgettable stories about love, resilience, and second chances.